Muntasir. I really appreciate the introduction. Thank you. That was really wonderful of you to introduce and lead this lecture. Is the voice clear?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. So our workshop today in collaboration with Dr. Al-Sharif, which really a big honor to share him this task. He's a very smart engineer and an academic. I had the chance actually and the honor to work with him. We studied together at RMIT. He was intellectual person with the companies we worked on. For today, my part here is about introducing a summary, let's say, about the important tips, how to write a strong publication. Very honestly, this is not easy. It needs a long time. And today, the slot I got like from 10 to 15 minutes, let's say. Hopefully, Dr. Muntasir will be generous a little bit with me. So today we'll be focusing on writing publication lifecycle, which is quite different from writing publication or publishing paper. This is more like the systematic approach of the management activity. I will take you guys through an overview for the full course of writing publication. I would like to give you an overview, an overall image. What kind of activities, what kind of tasks you need to follow and achieve to get a strong publication. Then we are going to talk briefly about the technical writing versus academic writing, which they are really different. The most common term here, actually, especially here in Iraq, they are using technical writing while they are teaching academic writing. They are a bit different. Then we are going to follow the steps for the publication life cycle, which they are really 5 steps, starting by preparation, research, organization, writing, and we finish with revision. So here's an overall image of the course and the requirements everybody needs to understand actually and follow them to have the capability to write strong publication. I divide them usually into 4 sets, as you see, like column wise. First one has 2 main points. The first point is to understand really what is the technical writing and what academic writing and how they are different to each other. And the set of activities for writing publication life cycle with the 5 stages that you follow them. Starting by preparation, research, organization, writing, and revision, which we are going to focus on for today. But you really have other 3 important set of activities. The other stage is how to write an abstract, which is really, really important. To the best of our knowledge, 80% of the reviewers, they just decide the decision for accepting or rejecting the paper just by reading the abstracts. They don't have the time actually to read the whole paper in details and deeply, and don't expect them that they are experts and they have a really high background about your problem, about the scientific approach you are trying to publish. So it's really important to focus on writing abstracts in particular and try to do your best actually to present your paper in a few lines mostly about 100 word, 150, not more than that. And there are some approaches actually to do that. Then you need to go through the academic language and expressions. Really valuable and important to follow the rules of the academic writing. Starting by introducing active and passive voice structures. In academic writing, these are the most used, let's say, grammar tense in writing the paper. And to the best of my knowledge, I've been able to recognize they both belong to two different schools. Usually I tell my students, this is the old school and this is the new school. You need to understand them and understand the culture and why they are using active or passive. And some papers, they mix actually those together. You need to understand the adjectives, very important to the academic writing, the adverbs, which really should be there. Sometimes the beginners of writing, actually, they miss to put the adverbs. You need to understand the paragraph unity and how coherent actually is your paper overall. Then the topic sentences, which the important opening announcement for the reader when they read a paragraph or they read a subject. So if you can get their interest from the first sentence, that means you are doing a good job and probably you will get a good review. But when the reader actually read sentence after sentence, and he works hard actually to collect the information and build an image, that will not going to actually guarantee a good review for you because the readers will get lost easily. We are talking about a deep scientific information. You need to simplify them, you need to drive them step by step. And the novelty, which is the new feature, the new innovation about your work, what's new should be highlighted carefully and very well. The third set of components is about the descriptions and the evaluation. How to describe figures, how to use the drawings, describe charts, algorithms, the mathematical equations, the tables, and how to select the right benchmark actually to compare your results with. So this set is mostly like the descriptions. I call them the descriptions. The final set is the doing a bit of research, the planning documentation and research strategies. You end with the quotes and citations, and start with the brainstorming, which really valuable to learn how to brainstorm your ideas and create and develop a new innovation. There are specific techniques about them, how to analyze the approaches independently and how to analyze them mixed together and produce new ideas. Really important for the junior researchers. You need to understand how to do the interviewing, sorry, and how to meet people. People don't have time for you, so you need to be smart how to interview people, pick the information as much as you can that would help in your research. The literature review, how to do the literature survey and literature review. You need to be smart on not taking, how to be fast, quick, and smart, taking notes from experts when you meet them. You need really to understand the plagiarism here. It's a bigger problem. usually the junior writers, they prefer to go with the paraphrasing as a technique, actually, to drive away from being quoted with plagiarism. I don't really recommend that. So usually, if you just follow the outlining approach, which we are going to introduce now, you just write down the points as bullet points. And when you write them, you describe everything again. It's really impossible to be quoted like plagiarized with high rates. So maybe it would be 1% or 2%. But, but if you find a difficulty with that and you prefer to go with paraphrasing, that's fine. You build your skills step by step, that's fine. Doing the research, and you need to determine your research, is it a primary or secondary, which they are different. We're talking about data that's like raw data is not analyzed, not compiled. That will be really primary because you are going to do a bit of analysis. Or maybe it's a secondary, which means the data you are getting, they are really analyzed, really organized, and that will be a secondary. And the work on both kind of research is a little bit different. You really need to understand how to use the quotations if you decided to use the text itself and refer them as a reference. And you finish with the citations. We have several systems actually for the citations, how to cite references. After you do that, yes, congratulations, you are not ready to write a strong publication. So you can see, guys, so many activities, actually. I put them together here as a full course to learn how to write a strong publication. Unfortunately, we don't have the time just to follow up everything. But the main point I would like to make for today is really to introduce the idea how to follow a systematic approach. What we noticed actually about the Arabic scholars in general, and the Iraqi scholars in particular, they are really smart, doing hard work, getting brilliant results, brilliant achievements, but unfortunately they fail to present their achievement on the paper because they have a lacking of writing skills. This is a problem when it comes to translate your results. The first set we are talking about today actually is more like the management scheme for the rest of the activities. It's the systematic approach. So not going to finish your results and then you get a piece of paper and pen directly without any plan, and you expect yourself to write a full paper. Definitely you will fail after 1-2 paragraphs. But when you follow the systematic approach, step by step, with a specific task required from you, I guarantee that you get a success actually in writing the paper. Yes, let's go to the technical writing. What is the technical writing? So I'm not going to spend a long time with that. It's very important to understand that the technical writing is different from the academic writing, where the technical writing is mostly used with companies to write technical text, reports, manuals, proposals, resumes, even websites, and the language is technical in nature. The audience is different from the academic. So usually the audience are general readers, and they are not expected to have high scientific background. So it's really challenging with the technical writing to simplify the language. So it's like direct talk or direct speech very simply with the user. For example, to know how to operate a device, so usually all the manufactured devices come with manuals, for examples, and how to use them. This is the kind of people you expect. So you are providing, let's say, assistance to the user. This is the main aim, actually, of writing technical text. That's why. While in academic disciplines, so we are talking about the disciplines, the scholars, people with high background of information, and in your area, not just they have some knowledge. This is the kind of audience. They are really different. And there's a special context and style. Context, it's a little bit related to the attitude we're going to talk about in a minute, and the style. So you are not allowed, in most cases, to pick your own style, for example. So when you go to the journal, usually the journal will specify the template for you and what kind of information they expect to put there. You can easily notice inside the academic writing the intertextuality or the quoting of a previous work. This is like a must, actually, to be in your academic paper. And the aim after that is either to support or oppose your findings, your research findings, or your point of view. And definitely the academic writer should have extensive knowledge of the subject. This is how he get the ability to describe and analyze the subject, and with excellent writing skills. So this is the differences between the technical and the academic. So let's go to the publication life cycle, which there are 5 components or 5 stages. So really, I believe in this principle. Successful writing is the result of knowing how to structure information using both text and design. So I don't believe you need to be extremely smart, actually, to be a good writer. But you need to be organized. You need to understand how to follow the systematic approach. So here is the systematic way. 5 stages, starting by preparation, then you do the research, go ahead with the organization. And if you can see, the writing is the 4th activity, is not the first one. This is why the academic writers actually usually fail, because they come from the beginning and think about writing. They start write directly. And the final paper is not going to necessarily reflect the approaches. Actually, he worked hard to produce, and we finish with the revision. So we have 5 stages. It's really necessary to follow them. Unfortunately, I have to tell you that writing is not easy, but I'm happy to tell you that the systematic approach, the easiest way actually to write and make it easy with time, because it's a practical job. these components and these stages can be interrelated together, sometimes overlapped. And the reason is simple, because you are doing a research. You don't come to research with full knowledge. So during the research, you will find new information and you will take decisions. And based on this information and conclusions you make through the way, you decide sometimes to go to the previous component partially or completely. That's why they sometimes interrelated or even overlapped. The time you allocate for each one is different from one to one, and that's really based on several reasons. One of them is the writing skills you have, actually, but also the kind of subject, the lack of information. So you don't need to deal with these stages as equal. And maybe they're different from subject to subject. So not necessarily to have the same weight every time. These stages may expand, contract, and sometimes must be repeated actually to fit the complexity and context. The other thing you need to consider really, which really missing here in Iraq, is how to collaborate and work inside a team. I had the chance actually to work inside intellectual teams, and I understand the outcomes and the results. When you work alone on a research or writing a paper, just think about you are one brain, one person effort. When we talk about a team, let's say 3 to 5 people, so we're talking about 5 brains, You're not just a double, not just a triple. You multiply your brain capabilities by 5, because you have 5 people thinking, analyzing, interacting with each other. Really, the outcomes will be different. And this systematic approach make it really easy to collaborate with partners, just because you divided the job. You have 5 stages, and those 5 stages, we'll find out in a minute, can be divided into major tasks. So you can allocate a task actually to people. Do them for you, people working on in multiple way, if you like. So let's go with the preparation. The preparation, we have 4 major tasks, which is the first stage actually here. Really writing requires solid preparation. If you miss the preparation, you will never guarantee the reviewing results for your paper. The reason is simple, because you didn't determine the attitude of audience. You didn't determine the capability level of readers, which means people, let's say, expert in a specific subject, and you are really talking about basic things like 1 + 1 = 2. Definitely, once they read that example, they will reject the paper. This is the attitude. At the end, we are people, okay? Feeling happy and feeling sadly, angry, anxious, you need to think about it. While the same example, if you consider it and you talk about 1 + 1 = 2, for some readers that have zero knowledge about the subject, they will be looking at you like, wow, now we can understand something, something. They appreciate the same example You need to determine this actually from the preparation stage. So this will really drive the writing. Somebody is writing on my slides, I believe. The first task here actually is assessing your audience and context. Okay, so you need to make an assessment, and the easiest way here actually I found is to put it like questions. You ask questions. You ask yourself. Maybe you ask your supervisor. You ask other experts. Your job here is to find answers. I did my best actually to put the basic questions that can help you to assess your audience and context, starting by who exactly is your reader. You need to know who's the reader. Are they students? Are they scholars? You know, you need to know them. Do you have multiple readers? And that means you have readers from multiple discipline. And in this case, we are talking about people that don't understand your subject exactly. So you need to create the language in the middle that can both of them understand it. It's really challenging. Who needs to see or to use the document? Is it really only the scholars? Sometimes the document will go to a manager, for example, and the manager will put a first decision. So you really need to write what they call it executive summary, for example. It's a general language, specific paragraph, only for that person. See, it's one person, but only for that person, just because it's a decision maker. So you cannot ignore him, you know? So when he read the paragraph, so he can get some ideas. Otherwise, you don't expect him to understand your paper because the man doesn't have any background about your subject. What are your readers' needs in relation to your subject? So this is to determine the quantity and the motivation of information you are writing there. What are their attitudes? This is a very important question about the subject. Usually we don't suffer from this as scientific scholars. Actually, scholars suffering from this, as I noticed, people writing about a humanitarian subjects. So it's very sensitive, like political, religious, and people have some, some background information, and they have their own assessment. So not necessarily they are going to accept your opinion, but we need to think about it anyway. Sometimes you are talking about skeptical people. They are just ignoring, they get bored easily. Maybe you're talking about supportive people, anxious, bored. You need to understand the kind of readers we have here and how to get their interest. We think about it. What do your readers already know about the subject? What's their background about them? So you decide what to put basic things, or you go directly to advanced things. Should you define basic terminology, or maybe that's just wasting of time for the reviewers? Are you communicating with international readers? This is a problem. After that, which is the most important task in the preparation, you go to the other task, which is establishing your purpose. And again, by just putting a question and you answer that, what you really want your readers to know, believe, maybe and to be able to do after they finish your paper. This is the purpose. If you think about these three words, so you can put it as a purpose. Determining the scope. Determining the scope is completely based on the first two tasks. So if you decided the purpose, if you assessed your audience and context, that means you are able to decide what to include and what not to include in your paper. And then you finish with selecting the medium, which is not a big problem for us because we don't have the choice. In most cases, usually we publish papers at journals and conferences. This is our medium. But if we are talking about research, that means all tools are open for you, like email, fax, voicemail, video conferencing, and other tools. Yes, so this is the preparation. Once you have done the preparation, you start with the research. And with research, it's really important to determine is it a primary research or a secondary research? What are you working on? Okay, complex subjects need potential understanding and knowledge. You need to read a lot. You need to understand, put questions. This is the research side, the place where you get the understanding, you study, you analyze, you know. So you need to looking for lots of sources of information. But the first thing you need to do is to distinguish between primary and secondary research and determine if you are working on a primary or a secondary. So easily the gathering of raw data, you know, compiled from interviews, direct observations, surveys, you know, whatever the source of information, but they are raw data. They are not analyzed, not compiled. That means you are going to do the analysis and organize them. This is a primary research. Well, the other research is the secondary, where the information already analyzed and assessed. Source of information, you need to do your best to use every single source is available. That includes libraries, the knowledge you have already, the knowledge of your colleagues. Your colleagues also scholars. They worked already on different subjects and probably they have some idea about your work. So if they answer your questions, they really saving your time. And definitely you need to check the internet sources and you need to think about experts from outside your organization. And use your skills, how to obtain the information. The third one is organization, okay? This is really important. This is the real beginning of writing. If you are organized well, that means you know what to do. Without organization, material of research definitely will be incoherent to your readers. Something not organized well, not easy to understand. And you need to decide your best method of development.
Dr. Dhiah?
Yes.
Dr. Dhiah, sorry for interruption. You've got 6 minutes left.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
I will rush a bit. Thank you, Doctor. You really need to decide your best method of development. That means it's your decision to decide what kind of way to organize your materials. But I really recommend outlining as an effective method of development, usually to my students. It's really effective. We used it always and successful. Starting by breaking the large or complex subjects into manageable parts. That will enable you to emphasize the key points by placing them in the right position in advance. If you notice, this is before writing. So you decide the place for every single item. I brought an example. I will go through the example. When you start to write, in fact, it will be really, really easy just filling the gaps because you created kind of a map actually. The result of your outlining, if you get it really well developed, that will ensure the document will be complete, logically organized, allowing you to focus exclusively on writing, and also helpful with collaborative writing. Sorry. This is the example I brought today for outlining. Usually we work it in 3 phases. So when you decide the subject, this is just an example we worked on before. Phase 1, if you see, it's only to determine the sections, the main sections. And I don't think this is a difficult job. This is quite easy. So if you sit with yourself or talk with your partner and decide what kind of heads, main sections we should list together. That's it. If you think about it, it's quite easy. Then you go to phase 2. Phase 2, you expand your sections and main sections into subsections. So you think about every single section. Do we need to put some subsections there? And I believe this is not a difficult job as well. And this is the result. If you can see the phase 1 being expanded to phase 2. Phase 3, you create the second column, which every single section and subsection, you write down bullet points. You just write bullet points. What are you going to talk about in this subsection? And you list down, in this table, and the final outcome, you have like a complete map for writing the paper. If you look about for phase 3, any scholar with maybe basic background, you read the bullet points and you know, oh, I should write a sentence about this, 2 sentences about that, and the end will be a complete paper. So you have the outlining, from the organization. Now you have the writing. It will be much, much easier if you have the outline. So it's mainly, if you look to point number 1, is really just expanding your outline into paragraphs. That's it. And in this stage, you don't worry about the grammar, the refinements, the language usage, or the punctuation, because you have time for revisioning. To consider writing the introduction last. Don't start with the introduction. Keep it for the last. Because once you finish your paper, you will have a precise understanding what you want to write about in the introduction. Your opening should announce the subject, which is, we're talking about something we call it the topic sentence. It's really important. The first opening, get the interest, give some background information to the reader, and you finish with the conclusion that ties up the main ideas together. And the conclusion should make a final point, some recommendations, some actions, or just a summary of your main points. So you see, you follow the 3 activities. When we talk about writing, you start to feel like it's not a difficult job because I prepared well. I have the outlining as an advanced map ready for me. And you finish with the revision, which is really, really important. I divided them into 5 main points. The first point, you need to be very eager actually to find and correct faults. Be honest. Don't be, don't be like ignorant for the faults just because it's your paper. Be hard on yourself, try to find them, correct them. and make the shape of your writing much better. Check your draft for accuracy, completeness, and effectiveness. So this is an overall image. When you finish the corrections for the faults, you have a look overall, and you think about it. Have we achieved the accuracy? Is it complete? What about the effectiveness, about the purpose we determined before? What about the reader's expectations? Have we met them? Number 3, trim extraneous information. So once you finish your paper, definitely you will find some few words you feel like they are extra words. They not necessarily need to be there. So just trim them, cut them. Don't overburden actually the reader with something unnecessary. Do not try to revise everything at once. So you put a plan for revisioning, and usually you read your rough draft several times, each time looking, correcting different set of problems. First, you concentrate on large issues such as the unity and coherence. You think about it. Is it a complete story? And you save the mechanical corrections for last, like spelling, punctuation, grammar, and proofreading. And really think about considering other reviewers. Once you finish your writing, you have a limit in revising your paper. But if you have other people, they don't have feelings with your paper. They didn't spend like nights and nights writing the paper. So they will be maybe even harsh, not just hard on your paper, and will help you really to make it better. I hope I didn't get really lots of time, sorry. Hopefully I succeeded to send the main target. Thank you, Dr. Muntasser. Thank you, Dr. Sharif, for your patience.